Life has a funny way of teaching us that not everything can be planned. Sometimes, the most life-changing moments catch us completely off guard. That night was one of those moments for me. Eddie, my son, had left for a 3-day training program abroad. I was used to being alone in the house, but something about this particular night felt different. I was sitting in the living room, sipping wine to the soft hum of music playing in the background. The dim light from the candles flickered around me, casting a warm glow that kept me company in the stillness. I was wearing a thin nightgown, something comfortable, something that made me feel relaxed. It was my way of soaking in the quiet and finding some semblance of warmth in my solitude. It had been 8 years since Charlie, my husband, passed away. Evenings like these had become my escape, my way of confronting the loneliness that had settled into my life. But that night, just when I thought I'd be alone with my thoughts, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I found Felipe standing there. For a moment I froze, my eyes locked on him, trying to process why he was here. He stood in front of me, holding Eddie's files and computer bag. His dark jacket clung perfectly to his broad shoulders, and his slightly tousled hair gave him that effortless charm he always seemed to carry. Felipe had been Eddie's close friend for years, but having him show up at my door like this, it caught me completely off guard. "Felipe, what are you doing here at this hour?" I asked, unable to hide the surprise in my voice. He gave me a polite smile. "Hi, Amy. Eddie and I have been working on a project together. I finished up my part and didn't want to hold on to this any longer, so I thought I'd drop it off." For a moment I hesitated. "Oh, right, of course. Well, come in, please. It's late, and I wouldn't want you standing out there," I said, stepping aside to let him in. As I closed the door behind him, I suddenly became aware of how I must have looked, standing there in the soft candlelight, wearing a nightgown. I tried to brush off the thought, but I caught the way Felipe's eyes lingered on me for just a second before he looked away. When we stepped into the living room, Felipe took in the scene, the candles, the wine, and smiled slightly. "Looks like I'm interrupting a cozy evening, huh?" he said with a hint of humor. "Not at all," I replied quickly, setting my wineglass on the table. "It was just a quiet night. Nights like these help me, ever since Charlie passed. But honestly, I'm glad you came by. I haven't really had the chance to get to know you properly." Felipe nodded, his smile softening. "Yeah, we haven't spent much time together, have we? Even though I've been around Eddie for years. Honestly, I've always wanted to say how much I admire you, what you've done for Eddie, the way you've been there for him. It's incredible." I motioned for him to sit, and as he settled onto the couch, I went to grab another wineglass from the kitchen. When I handed it to him and poured him some wine, his calm and steady demeanor filled the room. There was something about Felipe, his quiet confidence, the way he carried himself, that made it hard not to feel his presence. Between sips of wine and light conversation, the atmosphere started to shift. There was something tangible in the air, something unspoken. Felipe's gaze lingered on me just a little too long, and I could feel my cheeks flush under his attention. It was like he wanted to say something, but the words were stuck somewhere between us. And I was feeling things I hadn't felt in a long time. His attention, the warmth in his eyes, it stirred something deep within me. It was a reminder of how lonely I'd been, how much I'd missed this kind of connection. "Amy," he said finally, his voice soft yet unwavering. "Seeing you like this, alone, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. You're such a strong, remarkable woman, but at the same time, I can feel your loneliness. It doesn't seem fair." His words hit me like a wave, and I wasn't sure how to respond. So I just stared at him, my breath caught in my chest as the room seemed to shrink around us. That moment caught me completely off guard. I didn't know what to say, but the sincerity in Felipe's eyes held me frozen in place. All I could do was smile, though my heart was racing like crazy. "Felipe, I understand what you're trying to say," I finally managed, my voice soft but steady. "But this is my choice. Loneliness sometimes feels like a form of protection." Felipe tilted his head slightly, his eyes filled with deep thought. "Maybe loneliness isn't always the best protection," he said quietly. The air between us was charged with something I couldn't quite put into words. There was a warmth, a pull in Felipe's gaze, and I knew I wasn't imagining it. But should it stay at that? The intensity of the moment both scared and excited me.